questions or observations people have? Stephen?
Well, it's a sort of observation rather than a question, but as I understand it, Lucian, you've largely been talking about the process of testing and validating creative features. And I have some experience of that, and I recognise some of the issues that you're talking about. The fact that it can be easy to destroy quite a good idea. Caroline, you've been talking about the process of generating insights. An idea, a thought, from which the creatives can take flight. It's not clear to me that you make the case that market research actively promotes creativity. You make the case that market research can give the creatives an idea. This is the way in which customers want to think about the product. This is a kind of benefit they're looking for. This is the kind of product message that they would react warmly to. And I'm not sure that's actively promoted. Is that fair?
No. I suppose what I'm trying to say is I think, and I may be wrong, but I think as an industry we're testing less. So yes, this is different slightly from mine. We test less, and actually what we do is we give them the foundations to go out and probably take their own wings and be creative, because you've given them the framework in which to work. Was my argument about creativity.
Lucian, would you recognise?
Well, can I comment on that? Can I comment on that? Because actually there is a paragraph I'll actually cut from my talk there. just that subject. The thing is, shall I put this in a positive way or in a negative way? I'll put it in a negative way. One of the things that most irritates and frustrates me about the use of research is that when budgets are tight, resources limited and so on, the money that will be kept in the budget is the money to test the creative idea. The money that will be cut will be the money from the piece of research to explore for insights and learning and finding out among consumers in the first place. So we'll go off into the creative development process just guessing, not knowing anything about consumers, not having the benefit of any of the research that Caroline talks about. And then when we've guessed our way to a registration, we'll suddenly put it in front of people and say, well, what do you think of this? Well, if we're guessing, let's guess all the way through. And if we're working with consumers, let's work with consumers all the way through. But let's not ignore them just up to the point where we've got to do something, and then put what we've done in front of them to see what they think of it. It's the worst of both worlds.
Thank you. Let's bring in some other people. Arthur.
First of all, I would say, Lucian, you are a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Exactly. You are. And that co-creation is the future of innovation. But my main comments are for Caroline. Were you actually suggesting that the Meerkat campaign was created through research input? Because I don't really believe that. Secondly, the product which had a hair roller, the big hair, roller on one hand and the straighteners on the other, and you said it was hot? Well, of course it's hot. It's pretty hot on both ends, isn't it? So it's bound to be hot.
All right, it's selling itself, I suppose, is my point, because they got it right, because they had the needs, they had the they had problems, they had everything else, and they went out and made a product for it. I mean, it's a small product, it's not a rocket, it's not a landing base on the moon. I mean, it's a small thing, but it is selling itself because it's got it right, and it's selling itself by word of mouth.
And finally, the IPL product. I bought my wife what I thought was a very nice present for Christmas. She had Velcro rollers, and she had heated rollers. And I bought her something which was heated Velcro rollers, which I thought was great. Yeah, well, 50 quid, which I thought was quite generous.
Very generous.
And she said, well, no, I'm actually happy with what I've got. So I bought them from Boots, so I was able to get a refund. And when we went back into Boots to look at the electrical counter, there was all these IPL things.
Yeah.
It's 500 quid. I love my wife to bits, but I also like...
It's not worth 500 quid to you.
I suppose my point there is if you say it's innovation, so the technology, like Apple says, the technology drives the usage, but the point, the research, you might take a function and a technology, but you have to find the person and then you have to find the message. So there's different layers of what we do. If you've just gone out with medical IPL to solve tattoos or whatever, you're not going to have 500 quid sale in Boots. Not to you, obviously, but somebody cares for that one.
Philips are a client of mine, so I'm very happy with it. Just making thank you.
Great, and it is Norfolk. Kevin.
Yes, Lucian, I very much enjoyed your talk, but as this gentleman said, I think you made the case against creative development research rather than research generally. And if research generally is, you know, finding stuff out and thinking about things, presumably you would say that there's more creativity and innovation if you never find stuff out and you never think about things. Is that the case?
No, it's not. I mean, the thing is, I am focusing in my talk on creativity and innovation in the context of my own experience, which is basically in agencies. Beyond that context, I mean, I'm not, sort of taking on the entire research industry per se. In fact, I think I went out of my way early in my talk to sing the praises of the research industry in many contexts. In many contexts, but in the context of my own experience of developing advertising and creative work in branding and communication, research usually makes sure that the ordinary one gets through.
Okay, that's great. Robin.
Tonight we should be celebrating not Robert Burns, but actually Scotland's most famous ad man, which is, of course, David Ogilvy. He may have gone to the wrong school, Fettes College, along with Tony Blair, and not Loretto, which I went to, Norman Lamont and recent Charlton, and Alistair Darling. But to get to the point, David Ogilvy did say, and it's very good you're here, Judy, tonight, because David Ogilvy did say the consumer isn't a moron, she's your wife. And obviously you should use, therefore, research to listen to one's wives and very intelligent women. So the days of Don Draper are over. Which then gets us moving on to a little bit of this sort of co-creation stuff. Because whatever you put out there, social media will kill it if it's rubbish. Okay? Whether it's finished or film, whatever. And therefore you've got to start taking the consumers with you. That doesn't mean they have to potentially lead, but you can give them great ideas, but you've got to embrace them and bring them into that. And your criticism of online research was relative to quant studies, which is a ridiculous blunt tool, and I totally agree with. And as everybody knows, I do a bit of online qualitative research, so just to give that a plug, the one thing that you get out of that is you remove a lot of peer group pressure, so you get much better positive response to creative ideas. End of rant.
Is that a question or?
No, that was a statement. Adding to the statement.
Anyone want to respond to the speech? Judy,
I'd just like to point out that it still stands that you don't know who you're asking online.
Yes, you do.
I've had some very dodgy online samples from a very reputable firm's panel, so, you know.
I'm on panels. I have two children who are 2 years old.
You have two children?
I'm on a several months panel. I'm on a 2-year-old twins. No, but I mean I've signed up because I wanted anyway.
Yeah.
I think quite as being online quant sampling, different story. Online qual, you see who they are.
Okay, moving on. Andrew. Andrew over in the white shirt. Thank you.
Challenge the premise of Lucian's argument, which is essentially that research produces ordinary advertising. I actually worked for BNP in its heyday. I was a planner then, and it didn't produce ordinary advertising. Now, I think the basis, I think the falsehood on which your argument is resting is you're assuming that the kind of locus of judgment is out in writing rather than in the experience and understanding of the researcher who is with the creative process. So the researcher is part of, but separate from the creativity, acknowledges that the creative is able to do something that he isn't able to do, but is nonetheless able to bring an informed judgment from Weissler into it. It's not about, it was misrepresented in the era of Tony Blair and focus groups, where it seems to be like a jury, but it's not, it's simply an input into the judgment of the researcher. So I think you're actually, you've got a black box called research, but in fact the black box is actually the researcher. You're choosing the wrong researchers. Now, if you don't do that, what do you do? The answer is you're kind of assuming that the brilliance of the research would naturally sway the client, and the client would buy it. But that's false. The client is equally likely, or more likely, to go for the very ordinary and uncreative options that you're blaming on the ladies in Weissler.
Right.
Yeah,
You might
actually,
live in Rice.
sorry about Rice, I apologise to people in Rice. I know they're very good people in Rice. But you're making the assumption that otherwise the world would go the creative way, and that's a false assumption.
Well, I'm trying to win a debate, aren't I? But, but I mean, just to come back briefly on that, I must just come back on that and thoroughly agree with you. I mean, I bow to no one in my respect for BMP in its golden era, or for the way that it used research as part of its development process. And I mean, I think in many ways that the use of research at BMP, represents kind of a gold standard, against which, so much, sadly, research and creative development falls short. And, we voted earlier on the quality of creative and innovative excellence in advertising these days, and sort of clustered around 2, 3, 3.5. If we'd voted on BMP in its heyday, I'm sure we'd have all voted 5. I certainly would. That's how you do it. I didn't say that we always fail to reach the standard. I said we tend to, and I think the tendency is reflected in the gap between today's real life and the heyday of BMP.
Caroline, any thoughts on that?
Do you know, I don't really, I can't call to mind all BMP.
No?
I'm standing there going,
Okay.
shit.
I'm mindful of the time, so any a final question?
Smash bomb, please.
Iris, thank you.
Yes.
Popular story.
I don't know if the argument pro creativity was as well good as yours. Yours was more entertaining, so of course we tend to go for the more entertaining one. But I would say that research is what drives creativity from one market to the other. And I give a clear example. Beckham, the football player, was taken to Brazil to sell Calvin Klein pants. They forgot to make a research and see how Brazilian men see men like Beckham, which is, he's not male, he's not macho enough. And any focus group would give you straight away, yeah, he's a beautiful guy, but not the guy that sells pants.
Disaster.
So your question?
Good example.
Yes, but then actually for creativity, what I think that research does is when we go to another country, that is the research that will give the creative people the tools to really make it creative for that market, because what works in UK doesn't work in another markets.
I wish my experience over the years was being given these marvellous creative tools by researchers. It's not my experience. My experience is that the ladies in Ricelip say no.
Okay, thank you very much. So, look, before we take the final vote, what I was going to suggest then is, by standard rules, we allow everyone, the two debaters, 2 minutes each to just sum up what is your core message. Caroline, would you like to go first?
Yes, my core message, I suppose, is I think we are further back in the process. We are setting up the framework, kind of nurturing the creators, giving them license, giving them freedom. That makes them more creative because you're not shackling them by going to Ricelip and testing an ad and saying, well, this is a bit rubbish because nobody gets it. So I suppose my argument about creativity is because we do it earlier, because we create the framework that creatives and innovators are hitting the mark better. They're not going over the top, they're not falling short, they're not missing the consumer's interest and attention. That is my point. Doing it earlier, we're not just testing it out and saying this is a bit rubbish because we're a bit worn now and we want to go home because Ricelip is cold. Really is my point.
Thank you very much.
Testing.
Thank you. Lucian.
Okay,
2 minutes.
Equally briefly, I'm not arguing that research invariably is the enemy of creativity and innovation. I think that would be an impossible argument. I mean, I don't think you can have a serious debate. So research is always the enemy of creativity. I mean, it wouldn't be worth debating. It clearly isn't. I'm saying, on the whole, in real life, the tendency of the use of research is to bring creativity back towards established norms and means and principles, rather than to take it further into the new, the experimental, the creative, the less known. I accept that it can do that. I accept that it can do that. And BMP is a great example of an era when research did do that and drove one of the best agencies in the world. But my argument is, in real life, largely as a result of the influence of others, as a result of the influence of clients, and of agency account handlers, and of agency creatives, and of studios, and all the people involved in the process, on the whole, the influence of research on creativity and innovation is to hamper and impede creativity and innovation rather than to encourage and foster it. And that's my argument.
Great, thank you very much indeed. Splendid. So we come to the vote. So let's take a final vote then. Having heard the splendid presentations tonight, a show of hands for those in favour of the motion. This House believes that research does actively promote and encourage creativity and innovation. Show of hands, please.
I know
Nine.
Oh, and against the motion.
Well.
Well,